আমি এখন অ্যাম্বাসেডর পিনাক রঞ্জন চক্রবর্তীকে অনুরোধ করব ওনার বক্তব্য রাখতে। 10 minutes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. I am the only diplomat in this galaxy of academics. And so my view will be, I'm speaking in English because I am 100% Probashi. আমি কোনোদিন স্কুলে বাংলা পড়িনি, বাড়িতে শিখেছি, যা বাংলা শিখেছি। দেরাদুনে পড়েছি, তারপর লখনৌতে জন্ম, দেরাদুনে পড়েছি, তারপর দিল্লি ইউনিভার্সিটিতে। তো আমি 100% Probashi, so I have to speak in English, and it's a technical subject, so it becomes very difficult to speak in Bangla, which I don't know very much. So আরেকটা হলো যে যেখানেই বাঙালিরা একত্র হয়, আমি ছোটবেলায় শুনেছিলাম যে তুই কি ঘটি না তুই কি বাঙাল। Now I was always confused as to who am I, in that sense. But let me say with some certainty that I am 50% Ghoti and 50% Bangal. So having solved that problem, I would now, let's see, firstly thank all of you for being here and letting me speak in front of all of you, and also the organizers for calling me over here. Now, you have heard Professor mention the broad, some of the specifics also, but certainly. But let me, as a diplomat, I just cannot avoid, telling you something about diplomats, because you may not have heard this. So we are the butt of many jokes, because everybody thinks that, pata nahi ye log kya karte hain, that kind of thing. So as young diplomats, our mentors told us that to keep your ears open and mouth shut. So that was one thing, that don't speak, don't be undiplomatic by speaking out of turn, as we say. Then, of course, there were various other things like that a good diplomat is one who thinks thrice before saying nothing, in the sense that, again, don't speak out of turn. So these were some of the things that we were brought up on. Similar things like, a good diplomat is someone who can hold his tongue in several languages. So I will end with one, which is the most popular in my view, that a diplomat is a person who can tell you to go to hell in such a way that you actually look forward to the journey. So these are some of the things that, we grew up as diplomats. And there's another one, with due apologies to the ladies here, that a diplomat is a man who remembers a lady's birthday but never her age. So that's how we diplomats have to see the world. And we don't see it as the academics do. We see it as practitioners. We see it as solving problems. And we are not anchored in theory, in the sense that when you go and you try to solve a problem, you sort of tend to see how best I can do it. I can give you some examples from my own experience. Look, I think Professor outlined the kind of world we live in. Bortoman Bisher Bibortonshil Bhu Rajniti. I think it kind of translates to like evolving geopolitics in today's world, or something like that. Yeah. Excuse my Bangla. Because, absolutely. So geopolitics today is the prism through which, as he said, we look at most developments or global trends. Now, geo, comes traditionally from geography. The land and water were the traditional domains. Territory, maritime, etc. Today, of course, you have space, you have cyberspace, you have so many other domains where geopolitical trends are impinging. So, like, for example, geopolitics is dynamic, and it changes under the influence of various factors. Technology is one of them. Now, but today, geopolitics is defined by both cooperation and competition. And that is what 2025 is looking like, at least to me. And there will be significant changes, critical developments within geopolitics. We see new leaders coming up, Trump has been mentioned, and how they will be asserting their national rights or national interests to mold geopolitics to their advantage. That is something we are going to see. Technology, in my view, has been one of the major driving forces behind geopolitics. Being a physics student, and you might wonder what the hell is a physics student doing in diplomacy, but that's a stroke of luck. It happened many years ago, 50 years ago. Now, nuclear and the space age came about because of technology and science and technology. So the advances in communication technologies, for example, has transformed our world and connectivity. I began my career when there was still the manual typewriter and the carbon paper. And many of you would have also seen that. I'm not that old, by the way, but still. That from there, in the last 50 years, look where you are. They say, those who study history of science, that in the last 50 years, the development of technology has been more than before 50 years till the beginning of human history. Now, I don't know whether this is a hyperbole or you can check it out. So this is the world we live in today, and it is so starkly different. And I think the major advancement that has taken place is, of course, in the digital space, where today you have giant multinationals as non-state actors. I think this is a trend that we are going to see more and more. If you watched Trump's swearing in, who were there? You all know who were there. Elon Musk, Google, and all of them were there. They're all joined hands. So state and non-state actors are going to play a bigger role. State obviously are actors, but today non-state actors are going to play a bigger role. IR scholars say, I don't know, I've heard some people say that the international order changes every 100 years, roughly. I don't know whether it's true or not. So we are looking at the international order that began after the World War II, where institutions, Bretton Woods, etc., all these came up. And you've talked about it. We are, in a sense, slowly moving from that order into some other order, still undefined, I think. Some people call it multipolar, some people call it different things. But the US still remains the global hegemon to some extent, the largest military economic power. Now, what will happen is, of course, we don't know. All the Bretton Woods institutions, I don't know, are they decaying? But there are competitors, coming up. By the way, in Asia, we have the ADB, for example, which is kind of a, give loans. Then you have the New Development Bank. But we are still obviously have not reached the tipping point where we can say a new world order has begun. But there are pressures because, as Professor Agarwal said, we haven't developed alternatives. They are still in the, crib to sing. They are babies and they have not grown up yet. But of course, we have been clamoring for reforms. The new third world, we used to call them non-aligned, etc., is today called the global south. Because north and south, the divide is now north and south. The terminologies have changed. That is one thing. But geopolitics has evolved, obviously, from what it was, and American hegemony. And one of the major things that has driven this change is the rise of China as a global power, both economic and military. There's no doubt about it. India, too, is in the game now in some ways, but we are a little behind. But our economy is changing. We are growing. Hence, this whole concept that the world is moving towards a multipolar world, I don't know whether we can say that, yes, we have arrived. I don't think so. I think we are still striving towards that kind of thing. It's heading that way, so to speak. And we are in what we call an era of transition. Now, wars have been talked about. I only mention Ukraine and Gaza, how it has changed, the global politics or geopolitics. 2 minutes. Okay, I'll quickly run through. The changing nature of war, I think, is a major geopolitical trend. Drone warfare, what we today call, some people used to call it asymmetrical, now we call it gray zone warfare. that is below the radar. You don't see it happening. It's not conventional war, firing bullets, killing people. It's cyber attacks. Today you can cripple a country by cyber attack. So drone warfare, these are very dangerous instruments of war. And by the way, we have no international agreement to control it. Like we had, Geneva Conventions and all those things. So here, this is where we are now today. The other thing I want to touch upon quickly is energy and climate change. Now, energy is something so essential to the development of country, including India, China, we import all our energy. Trump now is reversing the whole renewables thing by saying drill, baby, drill. In other words, America has actually become the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. We didn't live in that era when they were the largest. Today they want to dominate that. Good for us if oil and gas prices come down, but bad for the world. And it's good for the economy, but bad for the world, and bad for climate change. Because if you don't stop moving into renewables, I think that geopolitics is going to hurt us in many ways. Nationalism and protectionism are increasing, as you can see. COVID pandemic exposed us to the weaknesses of global supply chains and when I wrote a piece called the COVID nationalism, that I will first save my own people, forget about the rest of the world, We didn't do that because India is the largest producer of vaccines and we provided as much as we could to everybody. Cyber warfare I have mentioned. But I think that, as we say in the phrase, the 900-pound gorilla in geopolitics today is the China-US relationship and how it evolves. There's no doubt about it. It can change a lot of things, supply chains, access to critical minerals, conflict over Taiwan, South China Sea, all these things. Another point I was to highlight is the dominance of the dollar, the US dollar, in the financial system of the world. You cannot send money from one country to another without going through the dollar. So that kind of a stranglehold that America developed over the international financial system. My question is that going to change in future? That is another aspect of geopolitics. I think it's too early. I think yesterday only our government said that BRICS is not going to get into this. It is not feasible. Are we trying to please America? Maybe, yes. So, that happens in diplomacy. So today, I think we are entering the geopolitical arena with a lot of disruptions coming our way. And these will, I think, make fundamental changes in the way we live in. Now, a few other points is that you'll be surprised to know that 3.7 billion people voted across 72 countries in elections in 2004. It's a figure that is quite mind-boggling. And is it because democracy is expanding? I don't know, perhaps, because so many people are voting. Suddenly you find South Africa declaring martial law. These kind of things, we call that the black swan event. Suddenly something happens without you expect to happen. Then, of course, the conflicts that are going on all over the place. Prime Minister Modi had once said that this is not an era of war, that, wars are not going to solve problems. So let's see whether Trump can solve Ukraine and Gaza. But Trump wants to acquire Gaza because he's a real estate businessman. Now, I don't know how he will do that, but it's funny, we are all laughing, but who knows? He will occupy Gaza and build high-rises overlooking the lovely Mediterranean Sea, etc. I know. I have lived there in Israel, so I've seen how beautiful it looks across and in Egypt but global defense, there is, I think, a major trend in hedging on security, because the global defense spending grew by 9% last year. It is a record $2.2 trillion today. So this is something is also worrying, that people are arming themselves for what? To fight? When we say it's not an era of war. By the way, our defense spending has also gone up in the budget. So these are the trends that you notice in the world today. The Israel-Hamas ceasefire is a good beginning, but I don't know what's going to happen. I've served in Israel. I opened the government of India's first office in Gaza when Yasser Arafat was still there. that's another story I will tell you later. So I think this, and Trump wants to acquire Panama and Greenland also. I mean, only these two, small territories that he wants to. Tariff war has begun, and so has the crackdown on illegal migration. We all know from the news. So are these new geopolitical trends, or these are continuing, or these are intensifying? These are the kind of thoughts I had. Okay, last, I will identify 8 domains you can keep your eyes on. One is, of course, artificial intelligence. That's going to change our lives. We don't realize it. And quantum computing. Sorry, got a bad throat. Advanced materials, bioengineering, robotics, spatial computing, decentralized computing system, and the next generation energy technologies. These 8 domains are going to see in geopolitics new technologies coming and driving geopolitics in a way that we have not seen before. There are no guardrails in this. When we say guardrails, we basically mean there are no international agreements governing these spaces. So I think this is important. And so we live in an exciting world. So let's look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chakraborty.